Welcome to Lair the Alchemist. And today's episode, we could call it Heavy Thoughts. We could call it a heavy rant. I'm going to call it In Defense of Streaming. I'm making this video because a lot of people are reacting to a video that Rick Beato made recently that I keep looking up the title of the video, but I forget it exactly. It's something like why music is not as good today, or the real problem with music today, or something like that. Pete over at Sea and Tranquility made a reaction video to that. And even though I agree with 99% of what Pete said and maybe 85% of what Rick said, I kind of wanted to take another angle on this. They bring up streaming. It isn't the only thing that they talk about, but streaming comes up in their videos, and I wanted to address streaming and kind of take the other side of streaming here and in defense of streaming. I've done a bunch of videos on streaming. I'll leave those linked down below. Let me just get out of the way right from the top because this comes up all the time and I don't want people to misunderstand me. Streaming doesn't pay the artists enough. They should pay the artists more. There, I've said it. Okay, I did a poll on my channel recently in the community section, and I asked, if you stream, what platform do you use? And 191 people voted. There were 5 choices, and 55% said Spotify, 17% said Apple Music, 10% said Amazon, 14% said Other, and 4% said Tidal. The next question was, where do you stand on music streaming services? Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, etc. 222 people voted. Out of the 4 choices, 41% selected I love it and use it very often in my day-to-day listening habits. 31% said I sometimes use it, but it's not my main music listening source. 15% said I hate it, never use it, and don't support streaming. 14% I never really tried streaming, so I have no opinion on it. So that is, what is that? 72% of people use it to some degree, use it a lot, or some part of their listening habit. I'm somebody that buys records, but honestly, even myself, I've made a video that I haven't published, and maybe I will now, that was called Why I'm Not Buying Any New Vinyl, and it sort of ties into something that I may reflect on that here in this episode discussing streaming. Okay, so you can phrase this however you want. You could say you can't put the genie back in the bottle. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. But once technology comes out, and especially when it makes things more convenient for people, people tend to not go backwards, especially if you're somebody who's born into that new technology. Now, myself, and I'm sure a lot of people that are watching this, we grew up buying our music. We grew up in a completely different era. I didn't even get on the internet till I was 26 years old. So my formative years were before the internet, way before streaming. So I remember that time. There's generations now that have grown up, discovered music in the world of streaming and the world of the internet. And there's nothing you could do about it. Technology is always moving forward. Things are always moving forward. And like I said, they're usually moving forward in a way to make things more convenient for people. Cars are more convenient and comfortable. Refrigerators are easier to use, whatever. And there's no sense in getting mad at it. There's no sense in thinking that things are going to somehow magically go back to the way they were before. It's not going to happen. It's perfectly fine if you don't want to embrace that new technology, if you're happy where you are with whatever, your refrigerator or your music or whatever in your life. But it does move on, and there's people who are going to be involved in this, and who are going to, this is going to be the only way that they know how to consume this. I remember my grandfather used to rant about the remote control, that this was just the sign of laziness, and all the problems in the world were because people couldn't get up and take 2 steps to turn the TV channel. They had to use a remote control. Well, now I can't imagine having to do that, having to walk across the room to change a channel. Things change. You can either go with it, or, and it's perfectly fine, you can stick with whatever it is that you've been doing. But things change, and again, if you're of a certain age, you're going to probably embrace these things more than people who didn't grow up with it. One of the things that I like about streaming music is the ability to discover music. I'm going to make a video about how there's certain styles of genres of music, certain uh, eras of music that I associate with certain formats. And when it comes to streaming, I got on streaming about 11 years ago. I was on Spotify. I'm on Apple Music now. That was when I really started to get into electronic music, dark wave, synth pop, just dark electronic music. And I was discovering a lot of that through Spotify, through playlists. Playlists would lead me to artists. The artists would have suggestions and recommendations. That would lead me to somewhere else. I'd read the bios on these artists. They were influenced by this or that, and that would send me back listening to something else. I was making my own playlists, collecting these things. Oh, I really like this. Put this in the playlist. And it was exciting, and I really enjoyed that. And it was a great way for me to discover this music. So I associate dark wave and electronic music with streaming, and it's helped me go out and go see some of these people when they come into town and they perform and everything. So I think that that's a really great aspect of streaming, is that it helps you discover new music. You could say, well, now there's so much out there that there's just too much stuff, but to have the ability to, if you're interested in something, anything, that you can just go and you can check it out and you can explore it more. You can go down. I'm sure we've all done this. We've all gone down rabbit holes. One band leads to another band that leads to something else, and then you just go here, and it just takes you into a whole different place, and you're discovering all this different stuff. And I think that is a really great thing that we have that. All right, this is something I hear that a lot of people complain about when it comes to like technology and streaming, that kids that have been raised on this, kids that only stream their music, they're not supporting the artists. They don't care as much about music. It doesn't mean as much to them. And I get where they're coming from with this. Yeah, when you had to mow a bunch of lawns to get the money to buy that album, it meant more to you because you had to work for it, you had to wait for it, all that stuff. But kids today interact with music in a different way. My daughter is in her 20s, and her friends go out to electronic music, EDM. She's into EDM. They go to these festivals. They go out to concerts a lot, and they're really into this. Now, are they buying CDs? No. She buys shirts sometimes from some of these artists, but they're into it. They're supporting it. This is how they consume it. This is how they react to it. It's just different today. I remember reading an article for the people who used to make sheet music, and they were talking about how the invention of the phonograph record was going to destroy music. It was going to cheapen it. It was going to make it disposable, because back then, before the phonograph, if you wanted to hear a song, somebody had to get the sheet music and play Yankee Doodle or Ring Around the Rosie on the piano. That's how you heard it. But then it changed, and things again keep changing. I read another article about ranting against 8-tracks and cassettes, about how that was cheapening it, because now you can listen to it in your car, and it's just, it just makes it so that you're not going to pay attention to it while you're driving and all this. So there's always sort of this, with every advancement in technology, everybody feels like it's cheapening the music, but every generation reacts to music in a different way. To go back to, like, let's say the 8-track generation, maybe if you turned 16 when 8-tracks are really popular, your musical memories might be driving around with an 8-track in your car. The cassette generation, walking around with your Walkman. The CD generation, everybody interacted with music in different ways than people did before. And kids are still into music. I can take you down to these EDM clubs, these electronic music clubs into Tampa, and you'll see kids lined up around the block for these artists. And I look at the marquee and I'm like, I don't recognize a single, I don't know who any of these people are, but the kids are out there. They're excited about it. They're paying $20 to get in. and stuff like that. And so this is how they consume their music now. This is how they get into it. Another great thing I think about streaming is it makes it open to anyone. And this works on both sides of it, the side of the artist and the side of the consumer. It used to be a lot more difficult to make an album. And you could say that's a good thing because it was sort of a gatekeeping method. But I also think that it's really cool that people can record something in their house. They can put it up on the streaming services. They can promote it through Facebook or whatever means, social media. And they can just do this all themselves. There's no barrier. There's nothing holding that back. So if you have a type of music, I'm into avant-garde classical music, and that stuff has a very small audience, very difficult to get that music out. It's performed, or maybe there used to be recordings of it. But now you can watch these things on YouTube. You can stream them, and it's there for you. I remember Frank Zappa saying once, like, I don't really want to listen to somebody playing a piano with a 2x4, but it should be out there because there may be somebody that wants to listen to that. And if you want to listen to a piano being played with a 2x4, then here you go. Here it is for you. So now it's all out there for everybody. You can listen to what you want. If you're that artist and you're making something that's really not mainstream, you have the chance to put it out there, and it has a chance to get out. I'm not going to argue with you that it's really hard to get above the noise because there's so much stuff out there. But let's face it, I mean, that's kind of the way it's always been. If you were just back in the 80s, if you were some band in middle America, it was really hard for you to get your record out and to get it on radio and to get in the magazines and to get people to hear it if you didn't have a major label and stuff like that. So the other aspect of it is the documentation aspect of music. I think that I kind of look at it almost like a library, like this massive library that's cataloging history. And I know people will say, well, the streaming services can go down and everything. You're better to have a hard copy of it. And yeah, maybe. But here you have all this stuff in this place. It's there. It's being documented. It's for anybody. Again, it's like a library. It's like now anybody can open up their phone, and it's like you're walking into a library, and there's just all these books, all this historical documents and stuff, and you can go and you can look at any of these books and you can check any of them out. And people will say, well, it causes people to be, they don't pay as much attention now. They just skip over things. And yeah, I mean, yeah, but it's like, again, let's use the library thing. It's like walking into a library with tens of thousands of books, and that's on you. If your attention span, you just pick up one book and then go to another and then go to another, and you can't pay attention. I mean, that's on the individual person. And I agree that we do live in a society where the attention span is way lower. But yeah, again, that's sort of on the individual person. The last point I will make about streaming and why I think it's a good thing is the convenience of it. And I mentioned this earlier, that with technological advances, convenience is a huge part of that. When things advance technologically, they tend to not get more difficult. Usually it's to make things easier. And hey, I'm a vinyl person. When I'm in my house, I listen to a lot of vinyl, but I go for walks every day. I'm not going to carry around a CD Walkman with me. I stream my music, or I stream podcasts. When I get in my car anymore, I'll be honest with you, I could bust out the CDs and listen to the CDs in my car, but I'm just kind of like, what's the point? It's not like it's a hi-fi environment. The car is noisy. What difference does it make if I just stream it from my phone? And there's times where I just don't feel like it just makes it easier for me. It makes it easier to discover things I don't have. Yeah, I could go and buy it and stuff like that and then check it. But this just makes it easier for me. And there's something to be said about that. And now, again, it's not the only way that I listen to music. And I think a lot of that is because of my age. I also enjoy collecting records and having some physical formats in my life. But I've found a comfortable place for streaming to exist in my world where I don't feel like I'm abusing it. I still support artists. I go to a lot of concerts and things like that. I buy merchandise. I buy physical media. But I found a nice place for streaming to exist in my world. So, okay, there you go. There are some points about in defense of streaming, why I think the good sides of streaming. So it's easy. I see people ranting and dumping on streaming all the time. So tell me what you think are the good things about streamings. Do you agree with any of my points? Let me know what you think are the things you enjoy about streaming. Let me know in the comments down below. Till we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.